Reverend Lisa Cook.
And I am Reverend Taylor Young.
And we're excited today to be able to share with you and talk to you about growing deeper and reaching farther, especially from our context as partners in ministry. So I guess as a way to start, Taylor, is if you say that the topic is growing deeper and reaching further, it implies that there's something already growing and that you're already reaching something. So I thought that we could start by just describing for everyone what we already had growing individually, where we were reaching, and how that relates to what we're doing today. So I'll start. 10 years ago, I was ordained to be the street chaplain for a ministry called Sacred Sparks Ministry by Nashville Presbytery. And that ministry is a ministry of presence to people experiencing homelessness and extreme poverty. We serve that community in a variety of ways. We have done emergency warming shelters, we have done cooling shelters, we do food, we do propane in the wintertime, all kinds of camp outreach. And one of the things that we did that became the biggest sort of thing that the ministry does is called our laundry ministry. And we'll talk to you more about that in a little bit. But that's kind of what we had growing. We were a ministry that had no walls. We would go out to the camps and see our friends. We would gather our friends in a laundromat somewhere in Nashville to do their clothes. And we did that for about 7-8 years. And that's kind of where we were, Taylor, before this partnership started, and kind of where we were growing and what we were reaching. And where we reached was basically any of our friends in the local Nashville area. We go to all parts.
So my goal, or my journey, I guess, was a little more less involved with that side of the ministry. I had worked for several years at Clarksville, Cumberland Presbyterian Church as the youth minister, and in 2020 accepted a call to come here to St. Luke Cumberland Presbyterian Church as the pastor. And I prefaced my youth ministry days to say that I used to take my youth group at least once a year when we would do 30-hour famine, and we would actually go work with Lisa. So I learned a lot about her ministry and working with her through there. The exciting thing about coming into St. Luke is she already had a presence here. She already kept an office here. And I'll just say, when I came into this church, I felt one thing I really wanted to lead this church in doing was making a bigger impact on the community. My kind of diagnosis at the time, rightly or wrongly, was that we didn't have a whole lot of outreach going on in any capacity. So I didn't know immediately what that would look like until sort of Lisa sort of came in with the main idea. But I knew we had to do something that really mattered more than just putting on a worship service one day a week.
And we were feeling, we being Sacred Sparks Ministry, post-COVID, when everyone sort of stayed inside and didn't gather, we did that as well. But when we came back from COVID, we really felt a stirring from God and the Holy Spirit to start looking for what we began to call our sacred space. We had done just fine. The ministry was doing just fine as a ministry without walls, but we felt that it could be deeper, if you will, if we had a sacred space that we could be in. So the idea was to find that place. And we went through a lot of ideas, me and a couple other people that are important to me, and I value their opinions. And, we did a bunch of thinking and dreaming. Do we buy a laundromat? Do we buy a house and transform it into a laundromat? And none of that, all of that was exciting, but it just didn't pan out. And as Taylor mentioned, I always have had this connection through the ministry here, because it was at St. Luke that I did my very first cooling shelters back in the summer of 2017, bringing people in to get out of the heat of the day. And so I knew the facilities that were at St. Luke. I knew they had a wonderful gym downstairs, a whole eating area downstairs, a full restaurant-style kitchen. They had a shower, which was something that is really important to us, but not so much important to a church, I would imagine. But when we heard there was a shower, we were really excited. So we entered into thinking, what would it be like if we shared space with a Cumberland Presbyterian church. And it just so happens that the community that St. Luke sits in is experiencing a growth in the population of people that Sacred Sparks targets to serve. People experiencing homelessness, people experiencing extreme poverty. So it's an awesome opportunity to sit the ministry down in a community that could really benefit from the things the ministry provides. And we could also benefit from having that community link in and become part of Sacred Sparks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way this had moved is I really felt that there was a role to advocate for what was going on and what was being proposed. I remember you coming to me and proposing this wild idea of either putting a laundromat style room either on the property or specifically in the church. And I knew immediately it was like, this was the thing I had been praying and asking God about. Where are the ways that this church can actually serve its community better? And of course, my thought was it'd be something that we would start and do. Little did I know that God would say, no, it's your friend over here who's going to bring this idea to you. And it just seemed like it fit so perfectly. This fits in line with the sort of the theological vision I had for this church about the way it serves. And it met a very real and tangible need for the community. And so you can't help but feel a little blessed when you're like, I don't even have to do that much hands-on work to get it going because there's something already happening so well by someone who's done such good work with it. Not to say that it hasn't been some hands-on work since then, yeah. But it just felt like it was God's answer to a prayer at that point.
I felt the same way, Taylor, that everything had been leading to kind of this place. And so we knew we had to make a proposal. We had to put our ideas down on paper so that the session of St. Luke, and also I put together a team. I don't really have a session per se for Sacred Sparks, but I did put together a team of good Cumberland Presbyterians and some that were not Cumberland Presbyterians, but they were all people that I love and really value their opinion. So through every step of the way, just like Taylor checked in, I'm sure, with his session, I checked in with my group of people who were helping me to make the decisions, because these were some big decisions, the biggest that our ministry has ever made. And I knew right in the beginning that I didn't need to make those decisions in a vacuum. So I would say that having people that you care about listen to your idea about outreach, listen to your thoughts is really important to get that outside opinion. It was not without debates, though.
No, was it?
It was not without debates. We don't want to make this sound like it was just the perfect thing and nothing happened. I was surprised that the biggest debate was where we would put the room. And I think Taylor can probably speak to that a little more than me.
I kind of forgotten about that moment, but yeah, you're right. It was a big debate. I know the first question was, could we put it in the room that we currently host a Narcotics Anonymous group? And that was pretty quickly fed back with, that's not going to work. And there's legitimate reason. A lot of people meet in that room. And we sat there with a session. We went back and forth, and it was just so hard to go back and forth and figure out where could this place even fit. And we kind of I felt like it was like a duh moment when we were kind of walking around, because I'm not going to lie, I got really stressed out with this.
I did too, yeah.
But we went in, and there's this room. We have a hallway full of Sunday school rooms, and back in the back corner behind the youth room, there's a fairly sizable room that has some plumbing in it, which is important when you're wanting to put washing machines in there. That was basically a collection place for stuff nobody touched anymore. Some chairs, some old books, some other things. And we just decided, as we talked about it, this might actually be the perfect spot, because it was an exterior room, like it was on the exterior of the building, because there's so many random things I didn't even know we'd have to think about, but you have to vent dryers out to the outside, so to run those vents, being close to the outside wall is important. Having plumbing in it is a good first step to getting washing machines put in it. We had to redo the electricity, and Lisa took care of all of that. She got all that fundraised. But we finally found the room. But this wasn't like just a snap of the finger and it happened. I feel like it took a couple months.
It took months, Taylor, and I guess that's a point I want to make is don't be disheartened if you have an idea to do something, to partner with someone. Don't get discouraged if you run into a snag like this, because I know he said he was frustrated. I was frustrated. I was even thinking, is there another church that we could do this in, because we can't find a room? But don't let that discourage you, because I'm so glad we worked through that, because we just got the perfect room. Like you said, it's exactly where it needs to be for a lot of reasons that we never even thought about.
Well, and I think it speaks to, I think this is a little anecdotal, but I think ministry, sometimes those other duties as assigned, or in this case, you have to learn things you didn't think you would need to learn about. You know, it's just, it seems so minute. You're like, oh, you're just going to obsess over the electricity and the water, but it's like you have to figure that stuff out. And I'm not a plumber, nor an electrician, nor a air conditioning person who did the venting. But those are all things you kind of have to learn about on the fly to make this work. So there's a lot of steps to things. Sometimes you think about the big goal, but figuring out the minutia can be really the frustrating part. But I mean, you know, it was worth it.
It was worth it, very much worth it. So don't get discouraged if you run into roadblocks. Those are okay. Those are supposed to be there to kind of slow you down and make you think, and maybe point you in the right direction, because it certainly did with us. So as Taylor mentioned, we got the yes, and I want to point out here, because Taylor has said often, I've heard him tell people that they don't really do much. They just, let the ministry come in and do what we do. But I've always wanted Taylor to remember that the most important thing that they did was say yes. We had to have a yes to be able to use this space. If we didn't have that yes, then nothing was going to happen. So we got that yes. We found the room. And then we had to do a lot of fixing up of the room. And this is where I appreciate my background in corporate project management. I was able to fundraise for the amount that was needed. I was able to get the electricity work done for the machines. We had plumbing that had to be done. I want to point out that was donated by a really good friend of mine and a CP minister. So it's always good to have people who have skills in your circle. And as Taylor mentioned, we had to drill holes in the building. That was fun doing that. And we also contacted a structural engineer to make sure that, because the room is upstairs, and we wanted to make sure that it would be able to hold the weight of the machine. So
I forgot about the structural engineer, because I remember that day I was just like so done talking about this room, and she told me about the structural engineer, and I was just like, I will talk to you tomorrow. I need a minute just to sit. And it was so silly to be frustrated about, but I just remember being frustrated, like, there's one more thing. How can there be one more thing?
There's always one more thing. I've learned that. I learned that for sure. But we got the work done. We got the room set up and all the machines bought and brought in, and we were ready to go. And we had set a date to launch the ministry here at St. Luke. We gave it the name Loads of Love. We sort of officially named our laundry ministry Loads of Love. And we opened in March of 2022. And we had a soft opening where we invited some friends in. We had cake and punch, and we did a blessing of the space. And I think this was really important for me. Not to just, everything was ready, but we didn't need to just run in and start doing the work right away. We needed to pause and give thanks to God and give praise to God for all the things that had been done. The scripture that has always guided Sacred Sparks Ministry is John 13:34. A new command I give you, love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. So that's guided what we've done from the very beginning, and it has guided what we have done here. And so we made sure we made time to bless the space, the rooms, the doors, the equipment, everything. And then we opened up officially the week after that, and we've been going strong ever since.
Yeah, and if I'm not sure if I'll throw our thing off here, but I will say something I started thinking about as we got into it, and I said this to Lisa all the time. I'm really good at like coming up with ideas that I can't really put into action. But I really wanted so strongly that this ministry not be something we just say yes to. Because I don't feel if all we're doing is saying yes, is doing anything to grow our people and to let them come into contact. So my prayer for this ministry ever since then was, what are the ways St. Luke cannot just house things, because we house things as churches all the time, but it doesn't actually create impact on us or others unless we are putting not just feet on the ground, but just putting our hearts and minds and ears in the place to actually have the conversations, get to know the people, understand the impact. Maybe you make a small donation to the impact, and what I mean is your hands and feet. Maybe some actual materials donated too. So that was always kind of the next stepping stone in this whole project for me, is not just how can it be here and do good work, but how can it also grow the church, the St. Luke Church. Of course, other people as well, but that was something that I had wrestled with for a while, and I think we've seen some ways that has really started to develop.
Absolutely. I just noticed recently, Taylor, when I think about our volunteer team, because that's something that we didn't necessarily have when we were a ministry without walls. It was basically just me and whoever I could get to help me that day. But we have, since moving into this space here at St. Luke, we've developed this real core team of volunteers who are here every week, in and out, to ensure that the work and the service can be done. And it hit me the other day that we have about 50-50. We have 50% of our volunteers are people who have been friends of Sacred Sparks and are now, inside and doing things and wanting to give back. And there's also 50%, almost exactly, of St. Luke church members who come and help.
Mm-hmm. That's been a blessing. I have enjoyed even just coming down there. I don't feel that I have time to do everything, but I try to make it a priority at least once or twice a week to come down and just serve lunch. But I think the most important thing, and I think you would say this is the most important thing, is going down there and getting to know people and meeting people and hearing their stories, and shoot the breeze about any old thing.
That's where the real ministry happens. We can wash clothes all day long, we can feed people all day long, but it's what happens when you sit down and you take the time to look across the table at the person who's sitting next to you, someone you may not ever know, may never see again, but you take that time to be present and to be present for that person and to allow yourself to receive their presence. And that's where transformation happens, I have found, is just in the fellowship, in the relationships, and in the opportunities to get to know each other better.
Yeah, and that's where I think the transformation I want to see happen in our congregation. It has happened, but continue to happen in our congregation. It's kind of that mindset where you move beyond these are people in need, or these are homeless people, or people who are in extreme poverty, and it suddenly turns into, this is Kenny, my buddy, this guy that I talked to, and this is I'm just making up names here. This is Linda, this is Sarah. They're people with names. They're no longer just this group of otherness. The kingdom of God is really expanded when you sit and get to know your brothers and sisters who are, I'll speak for myself, they're really outside of my context. They're really outside of my day-to-day context. If I did not walk down into Sacred Sparks, I would not encounter these people on a normal day, and I don't know that I would have developed the friendships and the relationships, and I don't know that I would have been changed as fully had I just been upstairs while everything's going on.
The pastor upstairs.
Yeah, pastor upstairs.
Pastor upstairs, yeah. That walks through every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I come down and Taylor's serving food and sitting with people and talking, and that's makes me so happy, because that's what I really feel God has called this ministry to be, is a ministry of relationship, a ministry of community building. It's good to give things away and to give services to people, but there's nothing like gathering people in a place that's safe and welcoming, and allowing them to feel like they're here for a purpose, and that they're not here just for a handout, but they're here because we want to see them this week.
I know we have a whole mapped out plan here, but there's one other thing I feel like I have to mention.
Sure, this is very casual.
We had our VBS this past year, and I think there's going to be even a little more transformation to our VBS in the future, because we're a smaller Cumberland Presbyterian church. We average 50 or less on most Sundays. Rarely have kids right now in Sunday service. But the transformation work that I think we're doing is to say, no, this church actually does house kids all throughout the week. We have kids that come into Sacred Sparks to Loads of Love. And so what we're working on now in our children's ministry, of course we want kids on Sunday morning, but we want to minister to kids that we come into contact with. And so I think even St. Luke's children's ministry at this moment is kind of being re-envisioned as to how do we minister to the kids that are in here, because there's no child more or less deserving of any of our love. So, when we're doing our programs like we have a trick or treat, we've reworked it this year so we could make sure that it accommodates our Loads of Love kids, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't care where your membership is. Those are kids that God has called us to minister to. And I think that's another place where the transformation is starting to happen. And I'm hoping that message communicates that, yeah, we don't have kids Sunday morning, but we have kids in this church, just like we have more people in this church. And they may call themselves members of Sacred Sparks or members of Loads of Love, or maybe even say they ascribe to St. Luke's one way or another, or they may call Lisa their pastor or me the pastor or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, Jesus' work is getting done in this building to people who come in the door.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I wanted to point out some real tangible ways that Sacred Sparks has been able to grow deeper and reach farther. And the children that you mentioned is a great example. Prior to being here in this space, we did almost nothing involving children. There was a lot of good reasons for that. But what this has allowed us to do, and it almost happened without us even being in the conversation. God kind of did this, and we looked around and noticed that it had been done. But we looked around one day, and we were surrounded by all these kids. So we pick up all around Nashville, like I told you, but we pick up at the Women's Mission, and we found out that they don't have laundry services for the women and children that stay there. So we decided to take on an extra route on a day so that we could bring specifically women and children back here, because kids get dirty, and I'm sure they would appreciate laundry. But what happened is something even beyond that, is the kids come and they play in the gym, and they play with the balls in the gym. And so we've started to get a few kid toys here and there. And it's like playtime for the children. And at last count, we have about 30 kids that we see on a regular basis. And that is certainly an example of growing deeper, because we were not doing that at all. Growing deeper, reaching farther. So for the kids, and then some of the ways that I think we've felt like we could grow deeper, like we have had weddings for our friends at Sacred Sparks. And I've done them in the laundromat. I did one in the laundromat, but we had someone who wanted to get married last year in November, and we said sure. And what we were able to do is use this sanctuary for our friends to get married in. And that is just taking it sort of to the next level, if you will. We've had baby showers for our friends. We've reaffirmed baptisms here. It's just been such a great experience, a great partnership for Sacred Sparks, because our ministry has grown. When we started doing this, our goal was to have about 8 to 10 people every day on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Well, we're now up to at least 20 people.
I was going to say only
day.
8 to
10. Yeah, we're up to at least 20 people every day. Sometimes we have as many as 30 here. So we're grateful that God is using this ministry and growing this ministry and creating community through this partnership. I did our numbers recently, and in the time that we've been open since March of 2022 until last week, we've served over 4,000 meals to people. We've washed over 3,500 loads of laundry and offered over 500 showers to people. And as I say always when I talk about numbers at the end, we've given loads and loads and loads of love out. And we're so grateful that we have been able to partner with St. Luke to take our ministry deeper and further.
And for the record, those meals are all pretty good.
Really good. Really good. So that is our story. We know that the denominational theme this year is telling your story. So that's what we wanted to do, is just tell you our story. And that's it. But we have, I think, some other people that could add some valuable insight into this partnership.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what they have to say, because There's so many people who are so plugged in and see it through such a different perspective.
Absolutely.
My name is Courtney Reynolds. I am at Loads of Love this week. I have initially met Miss Lisa and the rest of the ministry when I was staying at the shelter, the women's shelter downtown at the Mission. Since coming here, I have had a sense of security, caring individuals. I've met some really awesome people, made some really great friendships, a sense of family and community. They're always there to listen. They're always willing to pray with you. If you need a hug, they will give you a hug. If you are just struggling to get through something, somebody's always willing to listen, always there for you. It's been such a privilege to come here and a blessing. I absolutely love the ministry here. The people are fantastic. The people that they help are great. You make a lot of friends here. You create your own little family here, and it's just been wonderful. My daughter and I, we come very frequently. We also volunteer sometimes. We've helped with the vocational Bible school, with whatever we can really help with now that we're coming here and we know more people and we just want to help give back.
As a member of St. Luke Cumberland Presbyterian Church, I've enjoyed serving at the Sacred Sparks Ministry. We have partnered very well. We get along very well. When I come in the door, all the Sacred Sparks folks call me Alvin. I'm one of the mean chipmunks. But anyway, I've enjoyed working with the group. Down in the kitchen, we serve meals. My job is to put ice in the drinking cups and pour the tea or the Kool-Aid or lemonade or whatever we have for the day. And I will help take the drinks and or the desserts to the table for the Sacred Sparks people. It's a good partnership. The ministry is supported in the building with the laundry ministry and the food serving area. And it works well. There is space for everybody. Everybody gets their clothes washed, get a good meal. They have an opportunity to take a shower. The towels and the washcloths are furnished and renewed each week. And we have a wonderful group. They're real courteous and helpful. They help do anything that's needed, like taking out the garbage, like washing dishes. And we have one that's serving just daily, every time she's here. So we share in the ministry. We bring different bags of clothes. I have some neighbors that bring me clothes, and I bring them down to the church, and they sort through, and the Sacred Sparks people are just fine people. They pick up a piece of clothing and they'll say, not my size, and they'll lay it down and they'll find their size and go with that. They just don't grab a load of clothes and haul it away. They They know they need to share. But it's been a fine ministry. I didn't have any connection with them till about a little over a year ago. After my wife died, I had more time so I could devote to the ministry. And it's been an opportunity for me to serve, and I've really enjoyed it.
We really appreciate Alvin and Courtney sharing their insight into their experience in this partnership. Before we finish up, Taylor, I think it would do us good to talk about what I call keeps and work-ons. So what are some of the things that this partnership is doing well, and what are some of the things that this partnership can work on? So I came up with a couple of things. I think that one thing that we're doing well with this partnership is communication. And communication is key in most all relationships, but especially in a partnership like this. So Taylor and I have been good friends from the beginning and before this, and we'll be good friends after this. So we're in a good place where we can come to each other with pretty much anything.
Yeah. Well, you almost feel like my coworker,
Yeah.
like a friend coworker, because I mean, this is a small church. We don't have any other full-time staff here, so I'll just say the communication line is good because I can even go talk to you about unrelated things.
Right. The other thing I think that we've done well since being in this partnership is the volunteer team. And I have to give God all the credit for that because I don't know that I did anything intentionally to have that happen. But I'm very, very glad that we've got a good core team of volunteers that are here every week. And then we also have people who sign up to come provide lunch and to help serve and clean up. And I hope that as we grow deeper in this partnership, that would also continue to grow deeper. I think it's, again, using that word transformation, I think a transformation happens when you come in and you help and you clean and you sit down and talk with people. And I think that that's a great opportunity if you're looking for a way to sort of explore an outreach ministry in your context. I would encourage you to come visit us and spend some time with us. If there's something like this in your area that you want to model, go and visit them and see how it's done. And then with prayer and lots of good advice, you can figure out how you want it done.
If I may speak on that for just a second, I'll say I am an Enneagram Type 6, which is considered a loyalist, but some people call it a skeptic. And one of my, I think, personality traits is that I think about worst case scenario most of the time, sometimes to a fault. And so when we were doing the volunteer base, this ministry takes place during the week, during what would be considered, I think, normal working hours for people. So I was worried that we wouldn't have anybody here. And I probably would have hyper-focused on that, but God went ahead and took care of it.
Yeah.
So that volunteer base is there.
I really do believe that God had all that in control because I didn't do anything. But if we move now to the work-ons and things we can do better, I made volunteers a work-on also because I always think we need to be pushing for people to get involved, encouraging people to come and see what's happening here. I don't think you can have enough people to come and experience what God is doing through this partnership. So I'm going to always keep that for us to work on, that we are really conscious of inviting people to participate with us. We have we know that there's a lot of good things going on, and we want to share that with other people as well. And I think the last work on I would talk about is we've been here in the building for a little over a year and a half now, and it is time for us to recognize and to look into the fact that our new footprint in this building has had some impacts, has had some consequences for St. Luke. Because of the nature of this ministry, that impact has been on the utilities like water and electricity. So you always have to have check-ins. Even if you launch something, make sure you come back and check in every so often and see what has sort of risen up that needs to be focused on, because that's what we're focusing on now, is how can we lessen that impact to St. Luke of us being here, because reality is we're getting more and more people. We're going to be doing more and more laundry, feeding more and more people. So we hope that we're going to be here for a while, and we need to figure out how to make that, a reality that doesn't bring you all to your knees.
Yeah, and Lisa, I'm sure you've experienced this too. But whenever I do premarital counseling, which I do quite a bit, the number one thing that couples usually wind up arguing about is money.
Money. Mm-hmm.
Money's the one thing they always argue about, and I'll own that. I didn't really even think about it, but we came back, and I'll own that our church is having some financial struggles right now. And then the question came back: how much is it costing us to run? Keep the lights on, run the water for Sacred Sparks to be here. And so I'm also going to own we haven't figured out the total answer to that yet, but it is one of those uncomfortable things that we just have to work through. And I mean, that's the part of building any strong relationship. You're going to have to work through those hurdles. And I just think it's funny so many times the things that we worry about. It's just I see this parallel with married couples.
I know.
Yeah.
I told Taylor one time that if our Facebook status, it would be it's complicated.
Yes, yeah.
Taylor and I's relationship status is it's complicated.
and this is and I'll speak to this as me with our church, and it's not an overarching problem, but I have a very strong desire to make sure that our mindsets, our hearts, and our language are in the right place. So, we just got to own when we're working with people who don't experience homelessness, there is some language that can be used sometimes that expresses otherness. Use words that aren't necessarily in their, I don't think in anyone's minds are bad, but they use words like those people and us, them and us. And my hope for us as a growth and a work on for St. Luke is to have more people just using the term us. I want that relationship to grow, and I think that is the most positive way we can move as a culture in this church and with this relationship, which I do believe it is going that way, and I think a lot of people are starting to use the word us more than they. But that may be a personal thing.
Good. Yeah, and that ties in really well with my last work on. The thing that keeps me up at night is that we maintain the very good relationship that Sacred Sparks Ministry enjoys with St. Luke Cumberland Presbyterian Church right now. It is my desire that we never rock the boat, that if we do rock the boat, that my good friend will let me know so we can stop rocking it and we can get it back to where it needs to be. Because going back to that, we could have never done anything unless we got that yes. So I need to honor that yes and make sure that we do our part to keep this relationship healthy and good.
I think I probably rock the boat often.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
we both rock the boat. We're in a life raft off the Titanic somewhere.
I think anybody who's working in ministry listening to this goes, how do you not rock the boat at a church?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's people are complicated. They are. But I think when you step back and take what I call, the big view of everything that's going on, our main focus is to do the ministry Jesus would call us to. Mm-hmm. And I think that as long as people see it as that, and I think they do, that any of the boat rocking can be overcome. It's just open communication, like you said. I think just being willing to talk about things, be willing to talk about the uncomfortable things, which sometimes make you and me both just want to go hide under a rock.
Yep.
But I foresee this relationship continuing on, and we'll have more joys and more hurdles. Mm-hmm. But it's at the end of the day, the goal is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ through our actions and our love. And I think we're
Absolutely.
doing that.
God has called us to the good and the bad, and I think if we just let that scripture guide our ways, love one another, a new command I've given you, love them just as much as I love you. And I think if we follow that, there's not much we can do wrong, but there will be things we do wrong.
I'll find it.
Yeah. Well, that is our story. We have enjoyed telling you our story, and we can't wait to hear your story that this inspires and seeing all the good things that happen for you guys. Have a great day.